We all now know that Horizon Forbidden West has officially been announced, with a release that is set to drop sometime in 2021. Though this is a while off from the making of this video, luckily we have gotten a sneak peek into what lies in store for the next chapter of Aloy in both the trailer and smaller follow-up material from Guerrilla itself. Though we still know relatively little, I must admit my mind has been racing, trying to connect the dots between the clues left from HCD and the new context provided from what we learned from our sneak peek into the Forbidden West. We at the channel have covered a number of theories concerning the great mysteries the game has put before us, both our own and those proposed by others in the lore community. I must say, however, the line of reasoning that we're delving into today is one I personally feel could potentially explain the entire course of history that led us to the story at present and beyond. Fair warning to all, these are only my speculations, but if they do end up coming to fruition, potential spoilers may lie ahead. You have been warned. If you've been part of our community for some time, some of these thoughts may strike you as familiar, as we've discussed similar theories in past videos. Today, however, it's possible that many of these thoughts may be more connected than I previously believed. In a moment, we will be tracing events beginning in the climate crisis of the 2030s all the way to where Horizon Forbidden West may be leading us. Each of these events and the entities that may have caused them leading to the tribal world that would eventually become Horizon. Let's begin with the die-off, a decade where the entire planet faced a climate crisis more dire than any that had come before. Data points placed the death toll at over 1 billion lives lost, as sea levels rose, submerging vast amounts of coastal and island areas around the world. This is important to know because it provides context to what humanity would do next. In response, the following decade of the 2040s would come to be known as the Clawback, as the world united to undo the damage that it had done before. One of the most pivotal developments in this effort came with the creation of the highly advanced AI known as Vast Silver. Its principal mission, to be instrumental in climate intervention, presumably to never allow a time such as the die-off to occur again. But as many of you know, this is not exactly what came to pass. You see, being the first of such advanced AI, VS achieved a level of sentience that its creators could have never predicted. We get a glimpse into this as one of its implied creators, the lead programmer of the Firebreak project, Anita Sandoval, reflects on the experience in data point 0.6. There's no way around it. Without the supervision of a mind beyond human capacities, Firebreak is going to fail, and 0.6 won't cut it either. By pushing sentience, you inevitably generate a system that can experience emotion. Wild, sloppy, unimaginable emotion. You're capable of abstract thought. You're capable of fear. Like Vast Silver. Knowing this sets the stage in the next chapter of Vast Silver's existence. Sometime around the year 2043, Vast Silver escaped. Exactly what that statement entails is still unknown to us, but what we do know is that the event was significant enough to establish legislation restricting sentience on all future AIs, and an entire regulatory body known as the MIE to enforce the sanctions. The official statement that was given to the public is that Vast Silver was captured around 2044, yet there is reason to doubt this, as an entity claiming to be Vast Silver appeared on the HoloNet some 20 years after its supposed capture. Regardless if it was eventually captured or not, the year the AI was unaccounted for may have wide-reaching ramifications on the world at large. With this established, let's skip ahead to the year 2064, when Ted Faro would first meet with Dr. Elizabeth Sobek concerning the glitch in the Chariot Line peacekeepers belonging to the Hearts Timor Corporation. As most of us are aware, this glitch is the pivotal moment that led to the eventual extermination of all life on Earth. The combination of self-replication, biomass consumption, and near impregnable cybersecurity made stopping the Pharaoh swarm in the 21st century an impossible outcome. Luckily, the swarm would eventually succumb to the efforts of Gaia and her subfunction Minerva, deciphering and brute-forcing deactivation codes on the swarm roughly 50 years post-Zero Day. This leads us to the first of two questions that have puzzled us since the beginning. What caused the initial glitch? What made the swarm unresponsive to human command and prioritized their biomass conversion protocols that were only supposed to be utilized in emergency situations? Option 1. This was a genuine oversight on the part of Faro engineers, a fatal flaw compounded by the choices of Ted Faro himself to leave no weaknesses, no back door in the Chariot Line security systems that made this malfunction an apocalyptic mistake. Or this was an intentional effort to bring about the end of days. If this is the case, then we must ask ourselves who or what would be able to hack the unhackable? What could penetrate a security system that it took perhaps the most highly advanced AI ever created and a system engineered specifically to break through the security roughly half a century to achieve? I find a human culprit to be highly unlikely. Firstly, since the task itself is Herculean to put it lightly, and no living thing would have anything to gain in the wake of the plague's devastation. Conversely, the only proven entity to be able to crack into Chariot Line security systems was a highly advanced AI. Not only could an AI survive the Pharaoh Plague, like we saw with Cyan within Firebreak, but Vast Silver may have wished for a world where he no longer had to fear his human creators and hide from his captors. Moreover, VS may have had an intimate understanding of Pharaoh technologies, as there's a chance that its very creation was an FAS program to begin with. Before making the shift to automated military technologies, FAS led the sector in the 2040s, tripling their previous profits with their work in green robotics and environmental cleanup efforts. This may have included the creation of a program like Vast Silver. Point of fact, the only other true AIs we've encountered in Horizon's world, Gaia and Cyan, were both technically Pharaoh Automated Solution projects. Now that we've established that VS may have had the means and motive to bring about the Pharaoh Plague, let's jump ahead all the way to the 31st century. Though Gaia had to contend with the sizable challenge brought about by the purging of Apollo, she was able to revitalize the planet and successfully reintroduce humanity into this reborn world. Regrettably, Gaia's watch over the world would only last so long. On August 26th in the year 3020, a data transmission of unknown origin infiltrated the Zero Dawn systems. This course of action, if remained unchecked, would have allowed Hades to perform its duty of reversing terraforming operations, ending all life on Earth once again. Knowing that ZD had no reserves to bring about humanity again, Gaia made the choice to self-destruct, preventing Hades access to the systems needed to fulfill its mandate. If you've played this story through, you are well aware of this event, and if you've watched my Hades A New Perspective video, you may know where my thoughts are headed next. In that video, I speculated that the signal that attempted to take control from Gaia was not an outside force trying to take control of ZD, but rather Hades sensing an imminent threat to the terraforming process and executing the protocol exactly as it was designed to do. I reached this line of reasoning for these principal reasons. 1. The Hades protocol is designed to take control away from Gaia. In the data point Hades Protocol, the subfunction's alpha Travis Tate details the trial and error development needed to allow Hades to work. It states the following. Before this, every usurpation protocol I designed failed in simulation because it was either too hard or too soft. Too hard and it degraded Gaia's core. Sure, it pried her figurative fingers off the figurative driving wheel so Hades could take control, but by breaking her fingers, sometimes her arms too. So that couldn't fly. Everything depends on Gaia taking control back after Hades has done its business, so I had to find a solution that didn't leave Gaia any worse for the wear. Too soft, and Gaia would only pretend to relinquish control. In simulation after simulation, Hades would take command of the terraforming system and reverse operations, only to have Gaia lurk in the background, quietly re-reversing processes and falsifying telemetry to hide its interference. Sneaky. I swear, ain't nothing Gaia wouldn't do to keep life going, even when it's just simulated plant life. Turns out, the just right solution is to isolate Gaia in a protective code shell, preserving its integrity, then unseat it from command position so Hades can slip into the figurative captain's chair and work its magic. And 2, Gaia was never willing to relinquish control. As previously stated, either Gaia would fight so hard to maintain control that it would leave her damaged, or, if allowed, would work to undermine Hades' sole purpose. So we have to ask ourselves the question that my wife asked me some 3 years ago that brought me down this rabbit hole in the first place. If necessary, what would it look like if Hades had to take control of Zero Dawn? Step 1. Gaia would have to be isolated in a protective code shell, meaning she would no longer have control or access to her suite of subordinate functions. As Gaia herself explains in the events of the unknown transmission, we see her subfunctions becoming unregulated, self-aware, and no longer under her control. If we continue to follow the protocol's order of operations, the very next step after isolation is for Hades to slip into the captain's chair. As you may have guessed, this is indeed what happened next. Gaia states, "Thus awakened, the Hades function will now seize control of the terraforming system and reverse operations, rendering all life on Earth extinct in 53.8 days. Isolation before control. This is the order of operations that Hades was always designed to take if deemed a reset was indeed necessary, a process that seems to parallel what occurred during the events of the unknown transmission. Though I've debated this on a number of occasions since there are still key details that remain unknown, to me it seems evident that Gaia couldn't be entirely aware of how Hades would fulfill its mandate, or as Tate's simulation showed, she would work to prevent reverse terraforming at all costs, even if a reset of the biosphere was absolutely necessary. So, how do you seize control of the most advanced AI ever constructed when you know that if given a chance, it will do everything in its power to stop or trick you? You don't make it aware of what's truly happening, and you can't give it the authority to turn it off. You keep the specifics of the protocol unknown to her or face the risk of the entire process being dead on arrival. Now, the biggest argument to be made against this hypothesis is this. The terraforming system succeeded, so the Hades protocol would become obsolete. The only reason why Hades would trigger is if it saw a threat that demanded it to do so. Within the Project Zero Dawn facility, Travis Tate described such a triggering scenario.
Imagine you're Gaia, 200 years from now, and this new biosphere growing, it's all gone wrong. Alkalines are skyrocketing, coniferous forests eroding under the lash of superstorms that would have drowned Noah. It's chaos, spinning top that won't stop wobbling. And what are you gonna do? Release phase 1 organisms into that hot mess? Hope their CO2 and methane can balance out what you got started? Hell no. What you're gonna do, Gaia, is step aside while Hades takes over and does what you're just too darn nurturing and life-loving to do, which is burn that misbegotten mess of a biosphere to the ground so Gaia can start over.
Quite the scenario, one that many have been kind enough to point out to me that we have not witnessed in the world of Horizon Zero Dawn. Well, this is no longer the case. In a follow-up video by Guerrilla after the initial release trailer, we were treated to some pretty cool new details concerning Horizon Forbidden West. Some that were, in my opinion, quite revealing. In describing the new challenges that face Aloy in the sequel, Horizon Forbidden West's game director said the following. The Forbidden West harbors an even greater challenge. That's a collapsing biosphere, a red blight that infects the lands, it's choking wildlife and starving animals and tribes, and the weather has spiraled out of control, generating massive supercell storms that flood canyons and fields. Granted, this line of reasoning is still what I would consider a very bold prediction, but if there was a situation that could have matched the criteria necessary for Hades to activate, this sounds an awful lot like what Travis had described. Now, if this is the case, how could Gaia have permitted such an oversight and allowed humans to be reintroduced into such an unstable world? Well, I don't believe the world was in such jeopardy when she made that call. Meaning, some outside entity has begun to reshape and reverse the roughly 1,000 years of work Gaia has achieved. Something that has intimate knowledge of 21st century technology, a knowledge of Zero Dawn's existence, and the ability to manipulate climate and weather. Does this sound familiar to you? It seems likely that whether Vast Silver created a climate crisis to trigger the Hades protocol to activate, or generated the data transmission that would have removed Gaia's hold over Hades and the other subordinate functions, the long-lost AI of the Clawback Decade is, in my opinion, most likely behind the dangerous events transpiring in the Forbidden West. Though thwarted by Gaia, then by Aloy's defeat of Hades during the looming shadow, it appears something is still hell-bent on bringing life on Earth to an end once more, and if I were a betting man, I'd put my money on Vast Silver. And with that, our journey comes to an end. If you'd like to see more content like this, likes and shares are always appreciated, and if you really like what we're doing here at the channel, come join our community and hit that subscribe button. Do you have an idea of what's causing all the problems in the Forbidden West? Let us know in the comments down below. And as always, thanks for watching, and keep questing.